everybody, welcome to the PowerCast live every Tuesday. Erik and David, Team Powerhouse. We are very excited to be with you guys today. As always, we are going to be touching on some very sensitive subjects this evening, hoping that you're paying attention and sharing our podcast on a weekly basis with your friends and family. Make sure to check us out, as always, on the YouTube channel at Team Powerhouse Real Estate. Go hit subscribe. Join us live every week. In addition to that, we have Apple Podcasts, we have Twitch, you have YouTube, Spotify, thank you very much, TikTok, we have
Twitch.
Instagram, Twitch, Facebook, you name it, we're there for you. What's that? MySpace.
We are older, so, you know.
That's awesome. Got me curveball right there.
Yeah.
All right, so live every week with you guys. Very excited to be with you as always. Love to share with you education on real estate, local businesses, and sometimes, like we're going to do tonight, a little more serious of a subject that we haven't really touched on before, and it's something that kind of hit home for me.
Touched on,
Conversation about, this past week, I'm not sure if you guys have been in the know of what's going on. There was an incident in East Haven that happened where there were people that almost kidnapped or abducted children. And it was at I'll call it a place where everybody would go to and be a part of, and the beach and having fun. And lucky that there was a civilian out there who saw what was happening, and I'll just keep it as got them, chased them away. But the question is, what are you doing on an everyday basis for your kids to educate them to understand what it is for someone who might want to kidnap them? Because that's not a conversation that moms and dads have with their kids on a regular. And I think that it's something we need to talk about to make sure that weekly, as parents, we educate our young ones and our older ones and what it means, how important you are to them, how much you love them, and how important it's for them to know and to what trusting is all about with stranger danger.
well, I mean, even at home.
Even at home.
Even at home. I mean, there's child safety.
Child,
It
absolutely.
begins at home, but then there's a whole world outside of your house.
There is absolutely a whole world outside your house, for sure. So with this happening, and I'm hoping this helps, if it helps that one person, one family, and it reminds you to talk to your kids. I'm going to try to get emotional with you guys because I'm very sensitive.
You're gonna try to or try not to?
I'm going to try not to cry because it's something that's very sensitive to me. We, as adults or parents, if you can help out one family, one child, it's all worth it. We're hoping that you guys will spread the word to your kids, to your families, to your friends. You saw something that reminded you to talk to your kids about how to make sure when they're out playing, not to God forbid anything bad happen to them. So let's, Erik, do you want to start off a little bit with some information you want to share? We have a bunch of things to kind of talk about and kind of categorize and go through. Talking to kids about strangers, I'm going to read to you a little bit, unless you want to.
No, go ahead.
Talking to kids about strangers, one of the challenges of being a parent is teaching your kids to be cautious without filling them with fear and anxiety, right? Because you don't want your kids to be like, every time they see somebody, to collapse emotionally and freeze up. To teach them to be aware, their eyes and ears open all the time. They could be out playing with kids, but they should always know their surroundings. When I was a kid, I'll never forget, my parents sent me to Israel. Now, this is back, I'm going to say 35 years ago at least. And my parents sent my sister and I to Israel, and I remember on TV, which they had one channel, every time there was a commercial, they would talk about what kids...
A channel in Israel?
Yeah, it had like a one channel station at the time, yeah. And they would have a channel there that talked about kids not touching packages, not going with strangers. And they educated kids and people on a regular basis. And that's something that they don't do here that I've seen in the States before.
You know what? I'm not even aware how much they cover this in schools. With the little ones.
You're probably right.
Yeah,
And
I'm not even sure that it's part of the curriculum.
I definitely think it should be something that says, as parents, we should actually talk about our education system. There should be a class all year long that teaches kids at school how to be eyes and ears aware and protective about.
I'm sure that they talk about it in some small way. I mean, you know, they do the active shooter drills and stuff like that.
Right.
For the school, along with fire drills.
Because something happened.
So, right, but you're talking about something on the school environment, not necessarily outside of the school environment.
I think it's something we definitely should have our schools talking about with our kids and helping us as parents to protect our kids. So not having the kids with anxiety, but to be educated and competent. Talk to your kids often about safety, giving them the basics on how to avoid and escape potential dangerous situations. Teach them to never accept candy or gifts from strangers. I remember, again, candy, right? Don't take candy from a stranger. Or even during Halloween as a kid, my father used to take a bite out of every candy bar to make sure there's no needles inside it, right?
Yeah.
But
I didn't do that with my kids, but it would have been just because I was taking bites of their Reese's and candies and stuff.
Absolutely. So talking about what things that would intrigue a kid or a child or somebody to kind of go and talk to a stranger. Never go anywhere with a stranger, even if it sounds like fun. Predators can lure kids with questions like, can you help me find my lost puppy? Or do you see some cute kittens in my car? Remind your kids that the adults they don't know should never ask them to help or do things for them. We watched a couple of little videos that I've seen on YouTube recently where an adult with a puppy walks into a playground to a mom who's watching their kids play in the playground, and they said they did an experiment where the guy says, hey, listen, do you mind if I test your kid out to see if they'll come play with my dog and walk
Well,
away with me?
so he first asked the mom, he goes, have you spoken to your child about not engaging with strangers in certain situations?
Right.
At this playground?
Yes.
And she said, oh, yeah, I've had that conversation with her, and, and then he's, okay, I'd like to test what you taught her in a real world application to see how she does.
Yeah.
And then in the video, he walks up to her with the dogs and, hey, asking her if
You
she
know
wants
what?
to guess the dog's name and
Yes.
stuff like that, right?
Interacting with a stranger and the
Right.
puppy, so cute, playful.
And I didn't see, there was nothing on her on her side where she was any kind of
Zero.
concern or anything like that.
And then the guy asks if she wants to see other puppies he's got in the car. And of course, the girl walks along with the guy to go to the car where the puppies are supposed to be. Guys, it's something that is so simple that these people who are so sick can do and take advantage of our kids. You've got to talk to them about it. We've got to be making sure that they're aware of it on a weekly basis. It's a light conversation until they understand it. They can repeat the words back and they remember these things. And to make sure that they're aware of people around them when you're out in stores. How often you go to a Walmart, a Target, or even a grocery store, and you're focused on looking at some items over there, and your kid walks off and is all of a sudden turning like, oh my God, where's my kid? I mean, and you have a panic attack.
Sheer panic
Sheer
right
panic.
away.
So we need to make sure our kids understand and to see videos like this of other people doing these things so they understand what is a pitfall or a trap. Kids are very smart. If they see something one time, they'll remember it forever. How often has your kid seen you touch on the computer or an iPad and they figure out how to use an iPad and they're playing with it? And if they can learn that, they can learn the child safety things we need them to learn and make sure they see this on a regular basis. Let it be once a week. If they're 2, 3, 4 years old, 5 years old, it doesn't matter, 6, 7, 8, even the teens. You need to remind people about this kind of things because they're not paying attention. Even as adults, we don't think about it on a regular basis. So if
But
you're
there's a
out there,
challenge to, I mean, just to pivot on what you were talking about with the stranger side of things.
yes,
And I know that statistically, okay, based solely on statistics, most child abductions are by known people. So it could be a neighbor, somebody who's visited your house. It could be family members,
Yeah.
distant family members, close family members. I mean, it's difficult when the child sees this person in their inner circle and thinks, okay, this is one of the people I can trust.
right,
You know?
right. That's a even scarier piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, that's a hard one to combat.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And as parents, you say, well, how much protection can I give it my kid being like in panic mode all the time? Again, education, comfort, the same way you teach a kid when they're growing up self-defense in how to protect themselves, the same way as a parent, you want to teach them how to protect themselves from, God forbid, something else happening much worse like them disappearing, getting kidnapped. They need to have a little bit of fear, to have respect for the fear, so they understand what it is to be protected and smart and common sense.
Well, much like the active shooter situation where you have run, hide, fight. With this, there are things that you can teach the kid, even if it's a known family member, even if they're playing a prank.
Right.
You know, if the kid reacts correctly, you know, and you know, they do suggest that the kid fights, screams, or does make a scene. You know, have somebody, and which is the other part of it, because we watched the video where a kid did fight and scream.
Yes.
And there were people walking by on the
So-
streets of
so-
New York
so
where
let's-
they just walked right past.
Let's just
and
prep
didn't,
them. I'm
didn't
not sure
intervene.
if that video, if I sent it to Jonathan, I'm not sure if no. All right, so in this video that Eric's talking about on YouTube, we saw, and this happened a handful of years ago, where this young girl and a guy, they've kind of planned this out. They go in the street, and he walks by in front of others, grabs her. She's screaming, "You're not my daddy, you're not my daddy," and people walk by, okay,
And
and
didn't
don't even
help.
react to it, don't even help this girl. It's absolutely insane, and it's real life situations happening. So you need to make sure your kids screaming and yelling and kicking and punching and grabbing and clawing, whatever they need to do, always to protect themselves and yell and scream in any situation.
Yeah, and one of the things too is they'll I guess they're basing this on feedback from the kids that have been abducted, or from the criminals themselves. Say, what did you say to the kid? That they'll say, be quiet or I will, you know, and then they'll levy a
Hurt.
threat.
Right.
I will hurt your mom, or I will hurt your dad, or whatever. In that situation, and this is not something that's probably in the writing here, but if this were me and I was talking to my kids, I was like, don't worry about dad.
Right.
Dad can take care of himself. You worry about you.
Right.
So if they say, if scream and I'll hurt your dad, you can turn around and go, you're gonna hurt my dad? I don't think so. You know?
Right, or just scream, teach your kid to scream and yell, no matter what, to get as much attention as possible, to get, God forbid, the opportunity not to have happen. So again, we need to teach our kids. Think about what we're talking about here. Take one piece, talk with your kids about it. Go on YouTube, watch some videos with them. Let them see what we're talking about, because then the kids will understand visually more than sometimes words that we talk about. And I think that
Well, these are, so the videos that we're talking about were kind of examples or ways that, you know, people don't react. But there are actual, like, videos, like, from either people's Ring doorbells or from
Yes.
buses or whatever, of actual either attempts at an abduction or an actual abduction. That sometimes with kids, I know with my guys, it was, unless you see it, you don't know how real it is.
right.
You know, so you
Sure.
can talk about it, you can talk about it, you can talk about it. Now, I'm not talking about instilling the fear of God in them that they never want to leave the house.
Correct.
But it's more of an education thing.
They
you know?
need to be educated in a way that is not only educating them mentally, but emotionally and physically. Jonathan, is anybody out there on social media, on Instagram or Facebook, that's having questions at all? I know the guys, this is a very sensitive subject, and I know that it's something that you may not feel comfortable talking about, but please do not hesitate if you have any ideas.
Well, questions or suggestions,
Questions or
absolutely.
suggestions, absolutely, yes, please. You know, we're in Connecticut, right? And you say to yourself, well, how often does it happen here? Well, let's talk about that. In Connecticut, by the way, now we are only halfway through 2022. If you could guess for a moment, just think to yourself, how many abductions have happened here in Connecticut since 2022? I mean, just think for a second how many you would think, because we're in a small state, about 3 million people, right? 3 million people, what would be a number that you think about your local communities, where you live? Kidnapped, kids. I'm going to give you the answer. 197 as of right now. That's crazy to me. That's absolutely scared the living crap out of me. I couldn't believe it. I heard when I read this information. And statistics that we have over here, what do you think the number one state for abductions is happening in? This is going to be something that will blow you away
Yeah,
also.
this was a surprise when you told me.
You think about you have something you want to tell me? Okay. You think about the large cities and states we have. The number one state in America for abductions right now is Alaska. Has the highest number of missing people in the U.S. in 2000. Hold on. When it comes to child abduction statistics, and this was 2020. Alaska takes the lead The state not only has the highest number of missing people, but also the highest crime rate in the country, almost double the national average, which just blew my mind. Now, that might be a 2020 statistic. Everything else is 2022. According to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons, NAMUS database, which is funded by the U.S. Department of Justice, more than 600,000 people go missing annually. Approximately 4,400 unidentified bodies are recovered each year. Oh my God. Nationwide, there are roughly 6.5 missing persons for every 100,000 people. These are things that I think that are important for you and for me and for our families to recognize, be familiar with, and understand how important this information is and how to really help us all protect our kids. Eric, do you want to jump on what's up for a second over here before I start missing? There's a little more information over here. I might have repeating myself here. Missing persons by state in 2022. Am I jumping in front of you at all?
No, go ahead.
All right. According to the National Missing and Unidentified Persons Database, NAMUS database, which is funded by the U.S. Department of Justice, more than 600,000 people go missing annually. Approximately 4,400, we talked about this, unidentified bodies are recovered each year. Bodies are recovered each year. Oh, something just moved on me. Now, hear this. Luckily, the vast majority of missing persons cases are quickly resolved. For example, in 2021, 521,705 missing persons were reported. More than 485,000 were resolved. We're talking about, there's still a huge difference of 40,000 people still missing. That's not okay with me. The number of missing person cases has steadily declined since '97. In the past few decades, communication has made it easier to keep in touch with tracking people. Eric, jump in over here, buddy, please.
No, back to the safety tips for children. I mean, there's a litany of suggestions. One of the ones that I think is most relevant is getting the, it's like, okay, item 9 here, it says, if you ever scooped, okay, scoop is just like coming by, getting picked up and walked off with the kid. Scream, kick, bite, and fight as hard as you can to get away. Never trust what the scooper tells you, okay? So fighting it should be the kid's first
Self-defense mechanism.
first act of retaliation
Right.
to what's going on, without a doubt. Because I mean, it mentions in here, tell the kids if you're at a store and the child wanders away and gets the only person that they should approach while in the store is an employee of that particular store.
Right.
No
Absolutely.
strangers, no matter how safe they look, just always go to an employee.
Right.
That's going to be their safest bet.
Or just scream and yell wherever you are, and someone will find you.
Right.
I mean, your voice is the strongest thing you have outside your fist, right? Your body. I'm going to tell you that if you're a parent and you're out there at you're at the parks, you're at the carnival, you're at the stores, right? Make sure your kids, where they are at all times. Try and keep an eye. You get focused on your phones. We're all on our phones, paying attention to our phones nowadays more than we are our kids sometimes. You've got things in your hands, which means you're not holding into your kid's hand. And at what age do you think it's okay for your kid to be not holding their hand, where they don't want to hold your hand all the time, they want to be free? That's fair. But you have to have eyes on them. You have to be paying attention with what's going on.
Well, the more eyes, the better too. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just on you. So if you're at Disney,
Right.
safest place on earth,
Right.
happiest place on earth,
Right.
and you have an older sibling, maybe, it's like, hey, keep an eye on your sister.
Yes.
Keep an eye on your little brother.
Yes.
Whatever. Because the more eyes, the better.
Absolutely. One of the things that people tend to not think about is when their hands are full. Again, this is a very common thing. Your child is walking, your hands are full. If someone comes to grab your kid, what are you going to do? Are you going to scream and yell if that person takes the kid and throws him in a van, God forbid? How are you going to defend yourself and that kid? What are you using? What kind of weapon do you have? Do you have a weapon on you? Do you carry a gun? You can shoot somebody with a gun. That'll definitely protect your kid much faster than anything else. Do you have a pepper spray? Do you have something where you can, get to somebody to get noise, yelling, and protect? Something be physical, be active, be proactive. And I think that maybe what I'm saying to you out there is, if you don't have pepper spray or you don't carry a gun, think about having something to help protect yourself and your children. More than ever
Legally.
today, legally, right? And it's state by state, of course. Everybody has different laws and what you're allowed to do. But I think, and one of the things in abductions is, by the way, it's women and children. Women also get abducted very often, which is very scary also, and different ages. So if you, or boys, it doesn't make a difference. The point is, you should be protecting yourself any way you can. You need to make sure you're aware of your surroundings. You need to make sure about what's going on at all times, even when you're having fun. My father used to say we'd walk into a restaurant, right? And he could be able to sit down and go, okay, did you see the guy with the blue shirt on? And now I had no idea what he was talking about. And he helped to make me more aware of where I was, who was around me at all times, kind of like a detective or military. Well, he was a military guy to begin with. So with military, he kind of always kind of taught us to be very aware of our surroundings, who was around us at all times.
Yeah, that's more of a law enforcement tool.
Yeah. I think as parents, again, we should be very much diligent in making sure we watch as much as we can and teach kids. And I think that going to YouTube or looking up these kind of things for our kids to see and understand, it's very important for them to learn from these pieces of the puzzle, if you will. Eric, any more pieces over there that you want to mention?
No. Listen, I know when we grew up, things were different. You know,
Very different.
We were. There was a meeting in here before earlier, and we were talking to some of our colleagues, and how I was relaying how I used to take a city bus in
Yeah.
Queens, New York, a city bus. Not a school bus, a city bus. I had a bus pass, and I would flash it as I boarded the bus. My mom would walk me to the bus stop. I would get on the bus, and I would take it however many miles it was. And I would pull the chain.
10 years old?
No, grade school.
Grade school.
Grade school. Third grade.
Wow.
Third grade.
Not even
City
10.
bus. Yeah. So, but, this is, I'm dating myself here, but this is the 70s,
Right. So I remember as a kid in Westbrook, my mom would put me on the bus, on the Shoreline bus, all the way to New Haven. My father had a store there. I'd get off in downtown New Haven on Chapel Street, get off the bus, walk a couple of streets up, and go see my father at the store. That was a normal thing. And we're not saying that necessarily that you can't take a city bus, or you can, but your kids need to be more prepared emotionally and physically, and need to be educated so that they are able to prepare themselves and protect themselves as well. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's a different world.
Different world out
It's an
there for
entirely
sure.
different world now.
The 10 states with the most missing persons, I'm going to just run through. You may guess some of them, you may not.
Well, some of them are based on just population.
Correct.
I mean, you would imagine that the larger populated states are going to have high numbers.
But even still, if someone has, again, I just think about the fact of these. Anyway, ready for this? Number 1, California. Number 2, number 1, California with 3,010. This is, by the way, some pretty crazy numbers to me. This is as of 2022. This is this year, okay? And this, by the way, information is coming from worldpopulationreview.com. This is not Eric and I talking from our tush over here. This is information we're pulling from the internet. It's called the worldpopulationreview.com /state rankings missing persons by state. So top 10 states, California with 3,010. Texas, 2,044. Florida, 1,612. This one here has got Alaska at 1,201, and I'm guessing it's per capita, obviously, like you mentioned. You got Arizona at 1,039. Washington with 799. Oklahoma, 736. Tennessee, 633. And Michigan, 613. That is a staggering.
Those are high numbers.
Staggering. Let's not have this happen anymore. Let's not this happen to you and your family and your kids. You don't want to be a number. You don't want to be a statistic. God forbid. Please, let's keep an eye on our kids. Let's educate them as much as possible. Guys, this show was pretty intense today. It's very specific to you and your families. Please, 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 please share this information with your friends and
We
family.
care.
We care very much about you guys.
Yeah.
You know, we would never, ever want to hear from one of our past clients.
Well, believe me, we'd much rather be talking about happier, happier or more fun things, but this is something that came up in conversation. We had to retool because we had our guest canceled on us.
It became
And-
a very high priority for us, though, too.
Well, yeah, I mean, we did some research. I mean, I'm printing documents like crazy over here. My guys are a little bit older, so I guess I'm through that. I do have the granddaughter now to worry about.
Yes.
But it's not. It doesn't. I'm not obsessed with it. Okay.
It's not to be obsessed.
But
This is
it's
not- this is
something
not-
that is
right.
always going to be in the back of my mind. But and I'm not a paranoid person, but like when I walk in, like what you were saying with your dad, I walk in, I take a quick snapshot of what the store looks like, what the restaurant looks like, and then I know, and this is part of training, I guess, or whatever, but, who's a threat, who's not a threat.
You mentioned.
Where's
by
the exits?
Yep.
Where's the, where am I going if this happens? Where am I going if that happens? And after time, it becomes something you do in the first 5 seconds you walk into a place. It's not something where you're obsessed for like 10 minutes, you're going, okay. And the waitress is asking you if you guys want drinks, and you're like, no, hold on a second, I'm still making it. No, it's,
Inventory.
in time, it just becomes second nature.
Natural.
It's real quick.
And you want your kids to have that same natural ability if you can help them to learn about it. Because the more educated they are, the more perceptive they are with their surroundings and people around them. That's going to help give your kid a better chance of, God forbid, nothing happening ever to them. Eric, you also used to work in Homeland Security. And I know that you had mentioned that when it comes to especially women who were
So you're talking about what we talked about, what I told you about with the human trafficking?
human trafficking. Human trafficking is a huge thing in this country, more
Well,
than we even think about on a regular
It's
basis.
big in Connecticut. It's big in Connecticut because Connecticut is right in the center between New York and Boston, or Massachusetts and New York State, but more specifically New York City and Boston.
This is important to understand this
So
information.
91 is a corridor.
Right.
91 is a corridor between the two. And drugs and human trafficking are big on 91.
You mentioned, by the way, so if you were to see at the airport or a situation, can you give everybody an example of what you mean by that?
Well, there are some telltale signs, and this is no secret. If you look it up, it'll be on there for public consumption. It's not a secret or anything. But so usually the person who's being captured, okay, is being held against their will not have any personal items on them. So to speak to like when they're traveling, okay, the person who is bringing their hostage, let's call them.
Like a
Okay.
boyfriend-girlfriend situation or husband-wife?
Well, no, I mean, so you see families flying out, and usually the dad assumes the role of holding everybody's passport and boarding pass and stuff like that,
Yes.
right? Okay. So at the airport, one of the things that we were told to look for is if you have a couple flying. You have a gentleman and, let's say, a teen girl.
Yep.
Okay. So if the teen girl, if the male has her boarding pass, her ID, has all this stuff, it's because he doesn't want her to have anything on her person that identifies her, that gives her any kind of independence. Okay. So he will present that stuff, when they do the ID verification, and then he will take that stuff back and he will hold it. Usually the person that's being transported will not have any money on them, will not have a bag, like a handbag or carry bag or anything like that. They won't have anything in their pockets because they're under that person's control. So that's one of the telltale signs. They also will not let that person very far from their grasp. They will not let them venture off. And you see it in movies sometimes where, the person, the hostage taker, or whatever you want to label them, will make the mistake of getting a little lenient and letting them go into the store to buy something, and that's when the person says, help me,
Right.
So
right.
it only takes that one mistake, but, in terrible cases, it's 10 years later.
Right.
You definitely don't want to get there. But know that your law enforcement sources, they know what to look for. They know who to look for. You know, when something happens, they know, okay, who's in this area that is most likely the person that could have done something like this, you know?
Yeah.
Trust in your law enforcement with that. Hopefully, they have the
Skill
training
set.
and the skill set and all of that to react quickly.
Guys, we want to thank you so much again for being with us this week, being with us on this show. We hope that we've educated you even a little bit on information here. Please talk with your kids. Please watch these different videos that show kids scenarios so they can understand what is bad, what to watch out for. Let's make sure we can protect our kids as much as possible. They're our why in life. They're the most important things in our lives, and we are thinking about you back home on a daily basis when it comes to this kind of conversation. We want to thank you every week for joining us. And with that being said, we're going to go to the wheel for a free tumbler from one of our people who are watching us. And remember every week to go and join us on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, and you can go on our wheel also. The winner.
Yanit Gonzalez. Or
Yanit.
Yanet Gonzalez.
Yanit
Yanit
Gonzalez.
Gonzalez. Very nice, Yanit.
From where?
I don't know.
No.
Was it
I didn't write that.
Instagram, Facebook? You're not sure.
No,
All right,
wait a
Yanit. Please reach out to us. We'd love to send you a tumbler. We look forward to meeting you guys and speaking with you guys every week. Next week, we're supposed to have somebody in the show that is coming back.
A return guest. Interesting.
A return guest who is in the profession of salon products. She is a
Was I
hairdresser.
was I on that podcast?
She does nails, waxing, makeup, massage.
I don't do any of those
she's-
things. So I'm
she's-
not sure.
She's somebody very special to me. Valerie Lamel is coming on the show next week to talk to you about what she's doing, where she's been.
I wasn't there. I wasn't
and-
there for that
You
podcast.
weren't at the last
No.
podcast. Well, the last time
I
she was on the show.
I was MIA.
The last time she was on the show, we did the talk about being a wife on the show. What's
Yeah,
it
I
like to
wasn't-
be a
I wasn't
wife
there
on-
for that.
You weren't here that
Yeah.
time.
Yes, I missed it.
So Valerie's supposed to be on the show next week. Hopefully, I don't get myself in any hot water between now and then, as she might decide to cancel on us also. Hopefully not. But next week, Valerie Lamel, please stay tuned next week to watch us live. It'll be very interesting having her on and to know a little more about her and her endeavors and what she's been doing. Thank you so much for joining us every week. We love you. We appreciate you. And we will see you guys next week.
Stay safe, everybody.
Stay safe, and remember, be protective, be educated. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.